Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build Thursday Night Football Edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, getting ready to go over the Packers versus Lions Week 14 Thursday Night Football Showdown slate at DraftKings. This is going to be a fun one. Lots to play for both sides. The Lions are trying to hold on to first place in the NFC North, and the Packers are nipping at their heels. So Detroit would still hold the top spot even if they lost this game, but this would even the season series, and the Packers would then put themselves in position to possibly take over, if Detroit loses again anytime soon. So this game looks pretty good and pretty fun in general. Lots to play for. It has a 52 total, which is really, really nice, especially for a Thursday night game. And these teams are not on a short week since they played last Thursday on Thanksgiving. So nobody's going to be tired. We shouldn't really anticipate anybody being rested like the bell cow guys, like Josh Jacobs. It does have an injury designation with his calf. He was limited on Tuesday, but I don't really envision them taking it easy on him. They need him to stay competitive in this game. But yeah, lots to like here. I'm going to go over all the options. There's not ownership out yet, but I want to push this video out early, so hopefully it can help you in your process. If you like these free videos, these free breakdowns, and you want to keep them happening, please help me out by smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel. All those subscribes and likes help me out quite a bit. Let me know that I'm doing something right. And then also, if you turn on your notifications and you are subscribed, you get alerted to every video that we do. I try to do showdown slates for Thursday every single week. Sometimes I'll even do them for Sunday and Monday. And we also do the main slate for NFL, and we hit NBA every single day during the week. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's first look at what happened in the first game. First game was in Green Bay, another primetime game. And the Lions won 24-14. But honestly, initially, Green Bay was looking pretty good. They took a 3-0 lead. They missed a field goal in the first half, so they could have had 6 points. And up until like the final minute, it was 10-3. And then Jordan Love threw a really weird pass that got picked off and returned for a touchdown. Suddenly a pretty close, hard-fought game for like the first 95% of that first half turned into a bit of a blowout because Lions were up 17-3 at that point. Then they scored right away after the after halftime. They went up 24-3. Green Bay did rally slightly to only lose 24-14, but it ended up being a blowout. But honestly, initially, Green Bay played them pretty well. The Lions have a really good run defense, but Josh Jacobs had a lot of success on the ground with 95 yards and the 7.3 yards per carry clip. So I have tons of faith in Green Bay coming into Detroit, much like they did last year. Last year, the Lions whooped them on primetime television in the first meeting. And then the second one, Green Bay really took it to them in Detroit. Green Bay has a lot of speed to go around on the turf there in Detroit. So I actually think that could be a problem for the Lions. And obviously the Packers pass rush could get going with that as an advantage as well. So just narrative street. It is a game with a tight spread. It's only a 3-point spread with the Lions favored, a high total. And obviously it's a bigger game for the Packers because if they don't win this, they have no chance at the division and no chance at the number 1 seed and all that stuff. So they're going to be majorly incentivized to come in and show the Lions that they are legit. And I think they are legit. They just smoked the 49ers. They just smoked the Dolphins. Their defenses looked very good. Their offense is really clicking. So what better time than now to come in on a short week and show the Lions what's up, right? Anyways, let's get into it for DFS purposes. What should we like here? Even though there's no ownership, we can look at the projections and kind of how the matchups break down a little bit. Up top, the number 1 play as far as raw points here is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's going to be a chalky captain just because he's coming in with a 20-point fantasy projection. No idea what the actual ownership is going to be. I would imagine it's going to be somewhere between 15 and 20%. There are a lot of good plays in this game, and the game does have a high total. So I don't think we need to eat the chalky as captain. Worth noting that Jair Alexander is iffy for this game. If he is back, he would probably spend a lot of his time on St. Brown. I don't know if he'd necessarily shut him down, but he is definitely capable of doing that. But, just like if you've watched my videos, I just like to go away from the chalk in the captain spot. That doesn't mean I won't play St. Brown at all. And if I'm pushing out a lot of lineups, I'll still get exposure to St. Brown in the captain slot. But there's so many good plays here. I mean, I could rattle off so many names. Josh Jacobs, both the quarterbacks, Love and Goff. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Jameson Williams even looks good. The Packers wide receivers. There's just endless options here. A lot of them project really well. I mean, look at all these guys. If we just break it down in the captain slot only, all these guys here are projected for 11 or more fantasy points. And we have 4 guys, or is it 5 guys with a projection over 16 fantasy points. So if Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be super chalky, slide him to the flex or even consider fading him and do something else. I mean, by the way, if you followed my Thursday Night Football picks or Monday Night Football picks for the Browns-Broncos game, I nailed a David Njoku play. Wasn't really on Judy, so that felt bad. I mean, I ended up getting exposure. I ended up getting exposure to him, so it ended up being okay for me. But and hopefully you did too. But if you played Njoku, I liked him. He was my favorite captain play. If you played Njoku, he had scored twice. I think you probably did okay, especially if you also got to Jerry Jeudy in the end. But okay, so St. Brown, good play, no problem. Best projection of the slate. If no Jair, I'd feel a lot better about him. If Jair is there, I'm going to probably double down. And I don't know if I'll fully fade, but I'll be very underweight in the captain slot just because I'm imagining he's going to be pretty popular there. Jared Goff and Jordan Love both look really good. Anytime we do a showdown slate, you probably need at least one of the quarterbacks, especially in a high total game, and stacking both of them together probably makes sense. I will say, though, of the two, I prefer Love. The Lions are a pass funnel defense, if there ever was one. Their run defense has been really good on the year. I don't know if they're going to shut down Josh Jacobs or anything because he had success against him last time, and just the Packers are a balanced offense, and they will try to run the ball to set up their play action offense. So I don't know if Jacobs is necessarily a fade, but since he's dinged up and the matchup isn't great, I do just naturally lean into the Packers passing game a bit here. I think like Jacobs will have success in between the 20s. He's certainly candidate to punch in touchdowns because he's been doing that a lot lately. But I'll talk about him in a bit. The point here, though, is if you're choosing between Goff and Love, I think I like Love a little bit more. He just does offer a little bit more upside as far as a mobile player. He really has not done that this year because he's had lower leg issues. It seems like he's healthier though now. So on the turf, trying to evade Detroit's pass rush, I would not be shocked if we saw him be a little bit more impactful as a runner. But either way, he's just naturally a little bit more reliable, averaging more fantasy points per game on the year than Goff. Not by much. It's pretty tight. It's pretty close. But I mean, the Lions are an interesting offense because they're very, very good, very dynamic, very explosive. But Goff is rarely the one that benefits. They will be putting up major points, but sometimes he'll seem like he has nothing to do with it. He really just like gets them down there, and then they punch it in with a rushing touchdown or something. So like a good example is the last 5 games. He had one massive 37-point fantasy outing when they put up 52 against the Jaguars, but the other 4 games he had 16 or fewer fantasy points. So he just looks like a spike week quarterback. And if you want to take a chance on this being the week, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. I just don't know if I trust him as much as Love. Love has been very up and down on the year for sure. He's run into a couple tough matchups and even got knocked out of that Jaguars game a few weeks ago. Certainly struggled against the Lions the first time before getting benched in the fourth quarter. But, lately he's picked it up a little bit. 21 fantasy points against the Bears, 18 fantasy points against the Dolphins. He just hasn't really been needed the last 2 weeks either. It's been like the Josh Jacobs games. I think that changes this week big time. I think Love is going to have a lot of success in this one. I think the matchup favors him, and I think the Lions are understandably so going to go out of their way to try to contain Josh Jacobs and make Love beat them. And I think he will. So, okay, and then over for the Lions, you got the running backs. You got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. It's really tough to know what the ownership is going to be here. I would imagine Gibbs is going to be more owned just because he's the more dynamic and more explosive player. On the year, the Packers have definitely gotten gashed on the ground. Like earlier in the year when they faced like true stud running backs like Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and the like of that, like they've had issues containing guys for sure. Like any of their losses, you go and look. They beat the Texans, but Joe Mixon certainly had a day. So if I just don't know if they're going to completely shut down both of these running backs. Now, to be fair, the Packers have been better as of late. They did not let Christian McCaffrey go off on them. They did not let Devon Achane go off against them. The Bears running game, I think DeAndre Swift did have a really nice run late in that game, but overall, like over the past 3 weeks, their run defense has been pretty good actually. So I'm not like, I don't think you have to force either one in the captain or anything, but both are definitely playable. I lean towards Montgomery in terms of floor and safety, just because I think he's their guy in the red zone, and he's the better bet to get a touchdown for sure. And Gibbs always just has like a role that kind of goes touch and go. Like in a close game against the Bears at the end there, he only had 9 carries and he had a 9.7 yards per carry average. Like maybe because he lost a fumble in that game, they kind of went away from it at the end. But if I'm going to play one of them in a tournament, it's going to be Gibbs because he has way more upside. But if I want to just have a safer play exposure to their offense, it's probably going to be Gibbs. He already has 12 rushing touchdowns on the season. He has 4 rushing touchdowns in his last 4 games. He's just really, really steady. 12 plus fantasy points in his last 7 games. I mean, he's had 12 plus fantasy points in every game but 1. So not really the ceiling that Gibbs might possess. He can get you 20 plus fantasy points, but I think if you're kind of betting on floor and ceiling, Montgomery is the floor play, more of a flex option, and Gibbs is more of a fun try in the captain, and certainly the better ceiling play. So those guys are all the top projecting players right now. So I definitely want to get a lot of exposure to those guys, but so will everyone. So those guys are all going to be pretty owned. I didn't really talk too much about Josh Jacobs. He is the guy with the 3rd best projection. Maybe I did mention the fact that he is a little bit nicked up. It is not a good matchup by the numbers. And because he has such a good projection, I would imagine he's going to be the captain quite a bit. I don't think I'm going to do that. Once again, I'm going Packers passing game here. And, with Jacobs there, with Goff, St. Brown, I do think, and Gibbs and Montgomery, I do think that is going to be a very contrarian approach. And it'll be interesting to see where the ownership lands on that. But that is my stance right now. That's my general strategy going in. So one big reason is going to be Jaden Reed, who comes in all the way down here. I don't know if he's going to be overlooked in the captain necessarily. I hope he is, because he's my favorite captain play right now. If you want to take my strategy and be a little bit safer with it, I think Jordan Love is a really good captain pick. I think he's going to be owned there. But, the Packers do spread the ball around pretty well, and they're just a good dynamic offense that takes advantage of, teams biting on the run and they just put it over their heads. So you could go Love and then stack like 1 or 2 of his passing options and maybe get Jacobs in there too. Whatever the case may be, if you get Love, you're getting all the production in the captain, and whereas you're kind of just gambling on hopefully hitting the other ones. I preferred the other strategy personally. I like to take a chance on a guy that nobody's going to be on that has a lot of upside, or just take a guy who we know should be featured and should have success here, but isn't going to be very owned in the captain slot. So could that be Jaden Reed? We will see later tomorrow if the ownership checks out. But I love him regardless. Jaden Reed, his projection is not amazing for this specific showdown slate. It feels a little bit light, especially since the Lions have actually struggled against slot receivers pretty much all year, at least in terms of yardage. I mean, Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, John Mechie, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen scored 2 touchdowns with 73 yards against them in their last game. And Jaden Reed himself had 113 yards against them in the first meeting. So I think Jaden Reed has a chance at a really big game here. And right now, as far as kind of balancing ceiling and narrative and game flow and floor, I think Jaden Reed is my favorite captain play without knowing ownership. If we come in and Jaden Reed's the chalkiest play of the slate, I might put him in flex or go a little bit away from him, but he looks like an awesome play. Jameson Williams and Christian Watson are kind of right there as the next option. The last 2 guys in with a projection over 10 fantasy points. I like them both quite a bit. The Packers probably aren't going to stop both St. Brown and Jameson Williams. I mean, they're not going to stop all these dudes. I think the Packers are going to win. I think they're going to control the game, but I don't think they're going to completely ice all these good Lions receivers. If Jair is out, one of these Lions guys are going to really pop off. It's just going to happen. If Jair is in, I probably would lean more towards trying Jameson and the captain. He just has that ability to take the ceiling off the defense. really in any matchup. So he is very, very interesting just because he is not as involved as the running backs or St. Brown. He's not going to be that owned in the captain's slot. He just isn't. So he's very, very interesting if you want to approach this game from the Lions side. I like Jameson a decent amount there. I love Christian Watson, though. He's actually my second favorite captain of the entire slate. And obviously of the Packers as well. Just because he's going to be way less owned than Jaden Reed. He's a lot like Jameson Williams in that he's not super involved on a consistent basis, but he has slate-breaking upside. 3 weeks ago, in a way tougher matchup against the Bears, he dominated. 4 catches for 150 yards, 22 fantasy points. Last 2 weeks, he just wasn't needed. He was really there more for like the jet sweep decoy, for helping in the run game. They smoked the 49ers 38-10. He had 3 targets, no catches. Last week, again, they were playing with the lead all week against Miami. 4 targets, 2 catches for 67 yards. So still, once again, reminding us of his big play upside. This is a game he's going to be needed, though. And if you remember last time in Detroit, like one of the first plays of the game, they bombed like a 50-yard ball to him, and he went up and got it. And again, the Lions, their vulnerability is through the air. So I think the Packers, one way or another, whether they're playing from behind or whether I'm right and they're controlling the game, they're going to find success through the air. And I think Reed and Watson are going to be 2 of the guys that enjoy the best days. But Watson's not going to be owned in the captain. So he is very, very interesting, just not nearly as safe as Jaden Reed, for sure. And then next up, we have the tight ends, Tucker Kraft and Sam Laporta. Absolutely prefer Sam Laporta here. Tucker Kraft remains involved. The Lions have been a little bit stiffer against tight ends. Let me actually go check how the tight end situation is shaping up. Yeah, the Lions in the last 4 weeks have ranked second against tight ends. They have not allowed a touchdown in the last 4 weeks to tight ends, giving up 6.78 fantasy points per game to tight ends. That's disgusting. So Tucker Kraft is a guy that I do like to play sometimes when the Packers are kind of beaten down at other positions. Like if Romeo Doubs is still out, I would be a little bit interested in him, but they just do not give up production to the tight end. So I do not think this is a Tucker Kraft game. On the other side, though, the Packers have given up production to tight ends. They are 6th worst against tight ends over the last 4 weeks. Not giving up a lot of touchdowns, but certainly giving up catches and yardage. And we know Sam Laporta can go off. So Sam Laporta is very, very interesting. He's right there with Jameson Williams as one of my favorite Lions captain plays that will be very, very low owned. Let me just check what he's been doing. No, he did. He scored twice on Thursday on Thanksgiving Day. He's way down here, though. And he's really cheap. 8.4 in the captain. I like that. He's had 15-plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 5 games. 6+ targets in 4 of his last 5 games. So he's getting kind of more involved as opposed to earlier in the year. I don't know what the deal was. Maybe they were just finding success with St. Brown in the running game and they just did not force it. But Laporta had not been getting even reliable targets. I mean, actually, all the way up until week 8, he hadn't had a single game with 6 targets. And now all of a sudden he's getting all these targets again. So still not a target monster, especially with St. Brown there. But this is a pretty good matchup for him. He's had success against them in the past. And he's heating up. He had 2 touchdowns last week. And like I said, he's been doing pretty good in 3 of his last 5 games. Certainly a hit or miss guy. Certainly a risky play. But I like him a lot in the captain. So far, I think these other dudes that are up there with the best projections, no doubt they are super good options, and you can play them in the captain or the flex however you want to. I don't really think I'm providing a whole lot of value by telling you those guys are good plays. I think where I provide the value is really highlighting the contrarian captains or the lower owned flex plays that I think have a shot at being really, really good. Like going into the Monday night game, me saying Bo Nix is a great play doesn't do anything for you. What does something for you is me saying, I think David Njoku's going to have a freaking awesome game and he scores 2 touchdowns. Or if I'd been on Jerry Jeudy, I think he's going to have a great game of revenge spot, and then you captain him. That is what helps you, I think. So do what you will with those other guys I talked about, and I offered a little bit of insight on those too, but these other guys are really interesting because they're not going to be that owned in the captain, and they have a lot of upside. So just quick recap for those guys: Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta. Those are my 4 favorite contrarian GPP captain plays on this slate, and I love them across the board in flex too. They are volatile, but that's what you got to do to get a takedown in a showdown slate. In fact, Sam Laporta literally got me a takedown last year in a showdown slate, so I have a special affinity for him. All right, so elsewhere, I don't have a lot of interest in much of these other dudes. I think, is Romeo Doubs going to be back for this game? Let's see what his status is. So he had a concussion. He was out last week, limited participant in Tuesday's practice. So some guys do miss 2 weeks after a concussion. So if Doubs is out, just makes my read in and Watson plays feel even better. I would check the ownership just because Doubs being out, other players know what they're doing too. So they're going to be like, oh, well, if Doubs is out, then Watson and Reed are going to get more involved, obviously. I still like them a lot, even if Doubs is back, because it's not like Doubs is like a major target hog. In his last 4 games, he's not top 6 targets even once. He can have big games, though. And again, good matchup for him, too, because he's part of the Packers passing attack. So if he's in, I do not mind him. A small sprinkling of him in captain sounds just about right, and he's okay in the flex. I just like the other 2 guys a little bit more. If he's out, though, you can absolutely entertain the idea of, Packer punts. David Wicks is not really a punt, and his projection would get a boost if Doubs is out, but he would be a good play. And then you could certainly look at true punts like Bo Melton at 1.8K, Malik Heath at $900. I think those guys would be totally viable in the captain and certainly good flex plays. But you're just taking, those are even way more a shot in the dark than, somebody like Christian Watson or Jamo. It's just the reality of the situation. But they're in play if Doubs is out. Not super interested in the Packers backup running back. I mean, you could make an argument that Jacobs isn't 100%, so maybe they give more work to Emmanuel Wilson or Chris Brooks. They're both really cheap, even cheaper in the flex. Not the worst flex plays. Don't think the captain upside is there for me. But if you want to slide him in the flex and you think the Packers are going to control the game and maybe one of the backup running backs benefits, or maybe Jacobs exits with an injury or is just limited or whatever, I think they're viable as flex. Don't think I'd go captain. Packers are not great against tight ends, so I think Brock Wright is an okay flex punt. 4.5K in the captain for Brock Wright feels a bit rich. I don't want to do that unless you're playing for Sam Laporta injury or something. Tim Patrick feels a bit steep at 5.1 in the captain. I think he's an okay flex play. Obviously they don't have Khalif Raymond, so him and Allen Robinson, they'll play a little bit and they could do something. They're not exactly safe plays by any means, so I don't feel great about them. And then we have these other punts like Shane Zylstra, Craig Reynolds. I don't know. I just think that's just getting a little too cute. You don't really need to take dives like that. If we're really taking a dive and we really want a chance, I think Allen Robinson, Malik Heath, Bo Melton, that's about as deep as I'd go. And I wouldn't really have a ton of, high level exposure to those punts. Okay, so that about does it for me for the breakdown. I think it's going to be a firefight here. I think the Packers are going to come out and strike early. I think they're going to control. I think they're going to win. You got to think, how do you get to the winning lineup here? And, what's it going to look like? So if the Packers do win, I would imagine Josh Jacobs is reasonably successful. You could certainly bet on a huge Josh Jacobs game, which would put him in the captain conversation. He's already in the captain conversation by default due to the projection and due to what he's been doing lately. He's been disgusting. Dude, seriously, he's had 21 plus fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 games. The thing is, though, he's going to be owned. It's not an easy matchup. And a lot of people are going to think if the Packers are going to do well, then Jacobs is going to benefit. I think he would benefit, but my strategy is to bank on Jacobs just being good enough to be a factor and to help the Green Bay passing game. And hopefully the Packers offense takes off through the air in this one. So quick recap, you can play all those guys in the top, but my favorites are in order: Jaden Reed, Christian Watson. I think I put Sam Laporta just above Jameson Williams. So those are the 4 guys I really like to get different in the captain slot for Thursday Night Football. All right, that does it for me. Smash that like button if I helped you in any way, and also subscribe to the channel so you can catch more videos just like this. Thanks for watching, and good luck.